Hello and welcome to Vines and Ivy Alumni Stories, where we catch up with our former students and see what they're doing after life at Ivy Tech. So today we have Tricia Buchholz. It's an honor to have you here. We truly appreciate that you're taking the time out of your busy schedule. And yes, you do have a busy schedule based on our previous chat, so I don't envy you at all. So Tricia, let's start by just kind of introducing yourself, a little bit about your background and how you ended up at Ivy Tech, and then we'll definitely go into what you're doing now.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for this invitation. It's an honor to be with you today. Anytime I have an opportunity to speak about my experience with Ivy Tech and the lasting impact that it's had on me, I'm excited to be able to do so. So thank you so much for this invitation. I'm happy to be joining you from rainy Tallahassee, Florida. So I'm Tricia Buchholz. I graduated from Ivy Tech in December 2005 with a degree in criminal justice. I originally from the Lafayette area. I went to West Lafayette High School. After Ivy Tech, I went on to Indiana State and earned my bachelor's degree in criminal justice. And I know we'll get into this a little bit more later, but I spent 5 years working with youth in Tippecanoe County and decided it was time to take the next step and went to law school at Indiana University, McKinney in Indianapolis on the IUPUI campus, and earned my JD in 2016. So graduated, actually commencement was 10 years to the day after my Ivy Tech commencement, and decided during law school that I wanted to work in higher education, and spent a year after graduation trying to find an opportunity in that area. I found that here at Florida State University. And again, I know we'll talk about that more later, but that's where I am today, serving as the Title IX coordinator and director here at Florida State University. So, what brought me to Ivy Tech was, it's interesting. I went to West Lafayette High School. I was not a good student at all. Probably barely graduated, if we're being honest, and was a little lost after. And I found a home at Ivy Tech, and at first wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but took some classes, was still, uncertain about things, but found myself in a supportive environment, with some great instructors from day one, and eventually ended up in the criminal justice program, which again, I know we'll talk about a little bit more. I don't want to get too far into it right now. But that's where I found my home, and things really took off from there. So
what was going through your mind when you decided criminal justice? Is that something that you thought of in high school, or you just came to the program and decided, wow, I like this?
No, and I've thought about this a lot. I think it was some of the people that I had interacted with. So something happened, I believe it was 2004. And when I say something, I'm not sure what it was. I was having a conversation with someone who asked, kind of what are you going to do? And I somehow felt a pull towards law enforcement or working in the criminal justice system. And, I don't have a history of law enforcement in my family. I'm not sure what it was. Maybe it was some sort of divine intervention, if you believe in that. But that was just what I was pulled to. And so when I started to research and I saw that Ivy Tech had the criminal justice program, and then that there was an agreement, the transfer with Indiana State University, that interested me. Although when I really started the program, I feel like things really started over. I believe it was the summer of 2004. That's when I felt like my Ivy Tech experience really started. But I entered the program and I was serious about it. But it was as the program started and I met my first instructor that things really changed from there, and I was really pulled in.
We had chatted previously, and you brought up your relationship with instructors. Can you kind of touch on the different instructors that touched you as far as your career at Ivy Tech and some of the opportunities that you got from them?
Sure. Well, the most influential was our program chair, Karen Nielsen, who I know is no longer there. But she was my criminal justice 101 instructor. And the most impactful conversation that I've ever had in my life occurred in her office. And I was getting ready to register for courses for that first fall. And she and I were talking, and I don't remember how it came up. It's interesting. I just remember the really important substance of that conversation. And she made the comment to me, you should go to law school. And I'm pretty sure I turned around in my chair to see who she was talking to. At this point, I was doing well in her course. I was enjoying it, but I certainly hadn't experienced academic success up to that point. And law school is a pretty big deal. And so I'm sitting there going, I don't know that I'll even go on and get a bachelor's degree. Like, okay. And it's important when I tell this part of the story, I tell people it's not as if up to this point, I didn't have support or encouragement from my family or faith from my family and friends. I think everyone knew that I wasn't probably living up to my potential. And I had a lot of encouragement, but I guess I wasn't ready to hear it, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, when Karen said that to me, something stuck. Now, of course, at first I thought, okay, this seems just really far-fetched, but the more I thought about it, the more it motivated me. And I wasn't sure if that's where I would end up, but I started to kind of work towards that goal and make sure that I was setting myself up to be in that place. And to this day, Karen and I have a relationship. And I'll come back to her, but some of the other instructors, I had, it was Bill Mishler from he was retired. Well, at that point, he was still working for the Indiana State Police.
Yeah, state troopers. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Who if you know him, the incredible experience he had. I mean, just to learn from him was phenomenal. I had Bill Coghill, who I guess at that time, I believe he was the chair and Karen became, but anyway, Bill, amazing, right? Amazing human being, amazing experience.
Yep.
The practical pieces that he brought to the classroom. Mary Mitchell, who I know has moved on as well, but she was a juvenile probation officer at the time in the county. She and Karen probably pushed me more than any other instructors I've ever had, but always with the encouragement and the tools to succeed. So the expectations were high, but I had what I needed to do well. I just had to really put in the work and work at it. But the biggest, and I could go on about the instructors we had. It was just incredible when I think back. John Dennis, who's now the mayor of West Lafayette.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was I believe he was the deputy chief at Lafayette Police Department at the time. He was one of our instructors. So, I mean, you talk about top notch and people who had experience in the field, who brought passion to the classroom and provided networking opportunities for all of us. It was incredible.
Yeah. But if really, I can interrupt, I was actually on Bill's search committee, and we were just like, man, we're lucky to get this guy if we get him.
Yeah. I mean, some of the folks that in the criminal justice program that have been there either as adjunct or full-time or as your chairs, I mean, have just been incredible, which what does that say? Right. Yeah. Not only that people want to be part of Ivy Tech, but that Ivy Tech is able to go out and seek out those individuals and people of such high caliber. So and really the most, I mean, I have to say they were all influential, but two quick stories. One I'll say about Mary, who I'm still in contact with all these years later, what it's been 15 years since 16. I don't remember which year I took her class, but it's been many years. We're still in contact. She nominated me for the Distinguished Alumni Award. And Mary, when I was studying for the LSAT, so the admissions exam for law school, there was one particular part that I was struggling with. It's the games section is what a lot of people call it. It's extremely difficult. And I just couldn't get it. I just couldn't grasp it. And Mary offered to work with me and to try to help me understand, tutor me a little bit. And there was one evening that the only time she could fit in was, and this is what, 7 years after I graduated from Ivy Tech, 6 or 7 years. I met her in the evening. She had a young child at home, and she took time to sit down with me and try to help me work through, this challenging part of my LSAT prep. and she truly enjoyed doing it. You could tell. So that continued connection from Mary. I mean, I get to plenty of stories from class, and again, how she challenged us, but that shows that lasting impact. And then, with Karen, and this really, starts off the story of how I got to where I am today, if you want to go down that road now. But Karen presented me with an opportunity. So what I knew when I went into the criminal justice program was I did not want to work with youth. Did not want to work with youth at all.
Uh-huh.
I was sure of that. I wanted to work with adults. That was one thing I knew. And so, and I had considered law enforcement. I knew that might be part of it, but I that did not enter my mind. And Karen presented me with an opportunity. She said, Tippecanoe County Superior Court 3, which is the juvenile court, they're willing to accept you as an intern if you're interested. And I remember at the time thinking, well, one, I was blown away at the idea of this opportunity. And two, I knew that working with youth wasn't really what I had in mind, but anyone who's familiar with, juvenile justice in Tippecanoe County or the juvenile court at that time, our judge was the Honorable Loretta Rush, who is now the Chief Justice of the Indiana Supreme Court. And so you talk about just an unbelievable opportunity. And as an undergraduate student, right? I mean, whether it's at a prestigious university or a community college, to get that opportunity was so incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is really where, and I seized that opportunity, even though it was juvenile court. I said, I have to take this opportunity. I'm going to give it everything I have. It really felt like once in a lifetime. And I went for it. And that was because of Karen. I mean, and that was one of those moments where I was presented with an opportunity and with a moment, and I had to decide what to do with it. And so I absolutely credit Karen, I credit Ivy Tech with that opportunity. And then I was fortunate. I was able to run with it and make things happen. And it truly is responsible for where I am today. So, and I know, if we want to talk about that more, but that really is what started it, and was probably, and I hate to say that because there were so many great instructors at Ivy Tech, whether it was, I had an English instructor who was in a composition class that was phenomenal. Math is not my strong suit. I remember we had a great math instructor. And just this overall, I think two of the things that I really took away were obviously the caliber of the instructors, again, whether they're adjuncts or full-time or chairs, and the experiences that they brought to the classroom and their passion. Those were things that I saw consistently across the program. A biology instructor, not good with biology either. Math and science are not my strong suit. But the extra time put into, if students wanted to come in and study or, work on study guides, get some extra help for exams. I saw that across the board. And so I feel bad not calling out all of those individuals by name, but those are some of the most influential that I had at Ivy Tech. And certainly Karen and Mary stick with me the most.
You had mentioned that when you had graduated from law school that you were the only one that had a community college background. Did you get any flack for that from the other students, or you just didn't tell them?
No. So, and the really interesting story about that, when it came time for us to provide our undergraduate information for the program for graduating law school, maybe there was another community college student in the mix, but they certainly didn't have it listed in the program. I don't think there was.
Mm-hmm.
In law school, it's a different crowd. But I made sure that Ivy Tech was listed. And you and I talked about this, and I looked up the email right before we met today, right before this. But I took a picture, and I remember we graduated in the Indiana Convention Center, and there's all this pomp and circumstance, and it's very exciting, and it's fancy, and your families are there, and you're all, you're dressed, you're all dressed up. But they actually had this lined up in a hallway that went back to like the kitchen area. So I'm standing in this hallway, and they're, hushing all of us to get ready for us to go in. And I still remember, this is one of those moments I remember so clearly. I got my phone out and I took a picture of my name in the program and of Ivy Tech, you know, and it also had Indiana State, but, and I told you I get emotional about this, but I took a picture, and as everybody's texting and taking selfies and all of this, I sent an email to Dr. Baith, who I know is retiring if he has not already, and Rhonda Overman, who's the director of development there at Lafayette campus, who's a friend of mine now. I had gotten associated with them when I saw, actually interesting, at the law school, Jonathan, and I hope I say his last name correctly, Weinzappel. I probably said it wrong, who had been the chancellor at the time. He was chancellor of a campus. And I got connected with him, and he, told Dr. Baith that he met me. So I'm standing in the hallway, like leading to this kitchen area. And I take this picture and I send it to Dr. Baith and Rhonda. And I just said, I'm lined up in a hallway right now, ready to go graduate law school 10 years to the day after I walked across the stage, because our commencement was in May of 2006. And I, graduating from Ivy Tech, and here I am. And I just want you to see, like, I'm remembering, and I said, I'm remembering my roots. I'm remembering where I came from. And that was because Ivy Tech is 100% responsible for where I got. Well, okay, I get a little credit too, but Ivy Tech definitely, without Ivy Tech, there's no way that I would have been in that position. And I remember I just felt moved to send that to them in an email. And then I was texting Karen Nielsen, and, so yeah, I looked through the program and I didn't see anyone else in there with community college. But you can bet, and I made sure that Ivy Tech was listed for me, because where it all started.
That's awesome. And we appreciate that as a whole. I mean, that I think we talked about just giving people that opportunity to succeed, I think is one of our strong points. So that's great. Well, let's switch gears and talk about the present, and maybe some of the opportunities that you've gotten along the way as well.
Sure. So the present, so right now I am serving as the Title IX Director Coordinator at Florida State University in Tallahassee, Florida. So we are a top 20 institution in the country. That's a major point of pride for us, serving over 40,000 students. And as the Title IX Director and Coordinator, I'm responsible for our response to reports of sexual misconduct, particularly involving students, our compliance with federal laws, and working with campus partners to provide, from our office, a fair and equitable process to all of our students, regardless of which side of a case they might be on. Getting here is a very interesting story, and sometimes it's kind of tough to tell because it's a little complicated, but I'll do my best. So I had that opportunity to serve in Tippecanoe Superior Court 3. And during that time, they were working on a provisional certification for a juvenile drug court. And that was sort of my project, was to help with that. And I really served as sort of a scribe. I made sure I kept the minutes of the meetings and was given increasing responsibility as time went on. And what was so neat about that was every week we met, or every other week, but we met in the courtroom. And I remember they would bring the tables together. And if anyone's been in the courtrooms in Tippecanoe County, at least then, they were beautiful, and just, you felt like you were in a courtroom, a special space. And again, having at that time Judge Rush, who was already so well respected in general and in the field of juvenile law and juvenile courts. I remember sitting there that first week when we met and going around the table, and the people who were there were the leaders in juvenile justice and youth programming in Tippecanoe County. So they weren't sending representatives from their offices. They were executive directors. They were the heads of departments. Wow. And I get to sit there and be there with these people, right? and see how it's all happening, and to see the passion, and to see the leadership, and to see the different personalities and how everyone came together. And then I would get to be there for court. When the youth would come in, we would meet first, and then youth would come in who were in the juvenile drug court program, and they would, see the judge in an actual court setting. And I would get to be there for that. And so through that experience, first, one day I realized, and I don't know how far, it was a semester internship, I'm not sure how far into it was, I realized I had a passion
Wow.
for working with youth.
Mhm.
And after, and I'll try to speed ahead as much as possible because, as you know, I can talk a lot about this, but after I graduated from Ivy Tech, went on to Indiana State. My final year at Indiana State, I was required to complete a full year internship. And it was through my time in juvenile court, meeting Rebecca Humphrey, who is now the Youth Services Executive Director for Tippecanoe County. She brought me on as an intern, and I will say I was the second intern she'd ever accepted, and worked with her on a project very closely that whole year. We started the very first, what's called Girls Circle, which is like a sort of a girls empowerment,
Okay.
evidence-based program there in Tippecanoe County for some of the female youth on probation. So I got to be part of that with Rebecca co-facilitating. Again, that opportunity came from my time in juvenile court, which came from my opportunity from Karen. And after I graduated, there was a job for me working in youth services in Tippecanoe County. I was the first ever juvenile development specialist, which meant that I was cross-trained to work in a variety of areas. So youth home detention, the JAMS program, which was the Juvenile Alternative Management Services. I know I'm going to get that wrong. It's been so many years. We just called it JAMS. I worked with our truancy mediation program. So I was cross-trained to do everything. And we worked with youth who we were keeping out of secure detention, who were staying within the community, who had been adjudicated through the process, or we were trying to prevent being adjudicated. And that position really was a result of my time with Rebecca. I was able to, again, network, build a reputation for myself. She was not my supervisor, but it all just continued to connect. And I then went on, my position turned into the Juvenile Evidence-Based Programs Coordinator, which again, I was the first to serve in that role when the county had received a major grant through the Juvenile Detention Alternatives Initiative, which was such an exciting thing to be a part of, led by Rebecca Humphrey, right? So we keep bringing it all back. And so I served in that role. So 5 years total. So my first supervisor was Tammy Patrick, who, again, I met through my work, was incredibly influential, continues to be a friend today. We'll come back into this story later. Someone that, continues to be a mentor and friend. And then, back working for Rebecca. And then it was time to take the next step. And it was, I applied to law school. Well, I took the LSAT. I skipped that part, but that was probably the most stressful part. Anyone who's studied for that, it's a bear. And again, let's not forget, Mary Mitchell there to encourage me along the way. Erin Nielsen, had a few teary phone calls with her when I was, what am I doing? This is awful. I'm working full time, trying to study for this exam. And then when it was time, I took the LSAT. When it was time to apply, I needed letters of recommendation. And my 3 letters of recommendation came from Karen Nielsen, Rebecca Humphrey, and at that time, she was a justice on the state Supreme Court. She had not been named chief, but Justice Rush.
It's not bad recommendations, huh?
Not bad. But you're right. And I guess the thing that I focus on more than that is, why did I get those recommendations? And yes, the first thing that so many people try to say is, and it's true, right? Through my hard work. Yes, absolutely. I worked very, very hard for those recommendations. There is no way that I would have found my way into juvenile court, into the positions that I had, into where I was at that time, had it not been for Ivy Tech. It just wouldn't have happened, right?
Yeah.
So yes, I had to work very hard, but I had to work very hard after I was presented with an incredibly unique opportunity. And then it all went from there. But yes, some pretty nice letters of recommendation. And they worked. So because I did get into law school, and was determined I was going to work in criminal law. I wasn't sure on which side of things. Definitely had a passion still for working with youth, and the Juvenile Detention Alternatives Initiative was very inspiring. And then I got to my third year of law school and realized when I took there were two courses I took, sexual harassment law and higher education law. And I decided and after having some great experiences in law school, some really great experiences, wrongful conviction clinic, and also, some other things, a lot of great experience, but I decided I wanted to go into higher education, specifically compliance and Title IX. And, I really say, and I think back to when I gave the commencement address as an alumna in 2019, I guess it was. I talked a lot about how dreams and goals can change. And that's what happened to me. And I've thought a lot as we prepared for this conversation about, it was really that foundation from Ivy Tech that helped me go with it. Right. So I remember thinking, okay, I'm expected to be an attorney. I've had success in moot court, in trial practice. I was able to compete on national teams, serve as our associate chief justice for national moot court competitions. So I had spent time in a few different courts during my time. Superior Court 3 again as a law student. I went back and spent time there as an extern. But so it was hard. It was a little scary because I knew what the expectation was, but I think I had a confidence, and I know I had a stubbornness. That's something else I spoke about at commencement, that I think was rooted in that time at Ivy Tech. And that, thinking about how I came in to that experience, what I got from it, what I was receptive to, the opportunities I seized on, what happened as a result, the way my plans had changed, right? Not wanting to work with youth. And I think it gave me that courage and that stubbornness to say, this is what my heart is telling me I want to do. And I love, criminal law and family law. But this is the route I need to take. Shocking everyone. And so, as I told you, getting into higher education, I found it was extremely difficult, even with a law degree. And so I stuck with what I wanted to do. And I spent a year. I worked at Target. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Worked for the Lafayette Aviators for a couple of summers. Absolutely loved that. And was applying all over the country, wanting an opportunity in a Title IX office. And, I called up my old friend and mentor, Tammy Patrick, and she was here at Florida State. She had started working in higher education. And she said, well, it just so happens there's this position open in our student conduct office that focuses on Title IX cases and sexual misconduct. And the timing was just perfect. And so I applied for it and was fortunate enough to get a phone interview and then an on-campus interview and was offered the position. And so started, here at Florida State as an assistant director in what is now known as the Department of Student Conduct and Community Standards. And that was the role I was serving in when I spoke as commencement speaker. But then in September of 2019, was asked to serve in the role as interim Title IX director very suddenly.
Yeah.
And very, very suddenly. And that turned into a permanent position. And here I am. So all of that to say, you hear those same names pop up, and I hope they don't mind me using their names in this conversation, but those same people keep coming up, and those same people have played a role in mentoring me, in telling me about opportunities, in reviewing my resume, in helping me with cover letters, who have continued to stay involved. And again, trace it all back. It all goes back to Ivy Tech. It goes back to that opportunity. And then everything just happened from there. And that's why I know when you and I talked before, and the more, I said, as I've reflected on it, I talk about my education, but there are how many thousands of of institutions of higher education in the country. And what I think I saw, there's like over 80 in the state of Indiana, right?
Mhm.
So there are a lot of places where you can get an education. But for me, this was about a foundation. And that's what I've come to realize. This was a foundation. My education was part of that. But so were great professors, opportunities, mentorships, networking. All of those things came together and played a role, and played a significant, a huge role in where I am today. They set it all up, and I just had to, I had to run with it. Fortunately, I did.
Do you think that the smaller campus allowed you to get more of an opportunity to get those internships as opposed to a large university?
Absolutely. And I will tell you, with all due respect to one of my other alma maters, Indiana State, when it was time for an internship with Indiana State, go find an internship.
Mm.
And with Ivy Tech, I think absolutely the smaller campus, and the pride that, and I know Karen's not there anymore, but everyone
Mhm.
took in connecting students to these great practical real world opportunities, right? To look at something. I mean, it's like with Karen, with me saying, this would be a great fit for you, right? And I think I know that absolutely. I know other people who were interning, and it seemed like most of the instructors knew when we were interning where we were, those who were with the police department or probation. And I think, and I know a lot of instructors who helped others, again, with, serving as a reference or things of that nature. But yes, it absolutely came from the smaller campus, because Tippecanoe County, I mean, okay, it's not huge, right? It's not Indy, it's not Marion County, but it's still a pretty good sized county.
Mhm.
But the relationships, and I saw this even after when I went to work in the county, that those individuals have with people at Ivy Tech, with representatives from Ivy Tech. Oh, absolutely. It was the smaller campus, the smaller classes, the smaller program, and passionate instructors who just took a lot of pride in helping students connected to the right fit,
Right.
or a good fit, right? We might not have thought it was the right fit for me at the time, but to see, to help to not just plug somebody in, right? I
Right.
mean, oh, here's an intern. It wasn't like that at all. And so, yes, I do think that a lot of that, it allowed those instructors to be more involved and to help have a more personalized approach to internships.
That's great. Well, as we're kind of winding down, do you have any advice for maybe a prospective student or a current student?
Sure. Well, I have all kinds of advice I could give, but I would just say for prospective students, as I said again, the word that I keep coming back to is foundation. And what you get at Ivy Tech, what you get from that education, it's not just a means to an end, right? It's not just, I'm going to go get my degree so I can, and whether you're seeking a certificate or whether you want to go on and be a doctor, a lawyer, or a rocket scientist, and anywhere in between, I think people need to know that the people who represent Ivy Tech, the people who work at Ivy Tech, the people who support Ivy Tech. I know I was fortunate to go be with the Florida Friends I believe it was in 2019, and meet some of those individuals and some of the people who give so much to the college, and to see their passion and that they believe in the mission and the students.
And these are people that live in Florida that donate to Indiana, to Ivy Tech.
Yes, I believe most of them are, well, as they call them, snowbirds, but individuals who come down for the winter but have Indiana roots. But yes, these people were all in Florida, have homes in Florida, and give back to Ivy Tech. And give and the stories I heard, I didn't realize how much. I mean, that there have to be a lot of people that give, but these people, how generous they were with their time, how generous they were for this whole weekend. One couple opened their amazingly beautiful home to all of us. And there was a golf outing, and I spoke to the Circle of Ivy, the women from the Circle of Ivy who were there. And I don't know how many were there, but it was a very large crowd.
No.
to see those people and what they give back and what they're investing in, and they're investing in students, they're investing in people. So to prospective students, I would say, again, it's foundation. If you want, of course, there's value in the education, in many ways, but most importantly, the relationships, the passion that I saw across the board, the leadership, the people who work there, and the opportunities. And again, regardless of, mine might be a success story, but it's my success story because of how I defined what I wanted my success to be and what my goals were. But that's what's so great about Ivy Tech, is that anyone from any walk of life can come in, and whether it is where their education, stops, or whether it's the beginning for them, and they're going to get a foundation, they're going to get opportunities. It's up to them to take them, and they're going to get passionate instructors, and they're going to get a quality education that is, again, just such a solid foundation. And I think that's why I'm, my roots are there, because that is where it all started. It's where I got, and I think others will find, not only from that encouragement, you get what I call good stubbornness. I used as my theme at my commencement address, but good stubbornness to stick with it and to keep trying. And you get confidence, and you see something in yourself that maybe you didn't. So that's what I would say to prospective students. To current students, hang in there. I know it's tough. It was an incredible experience, but I also know it's tough. You get challenged, right? Take advantage of resources, be connected with people, stay connected after you graduate, and be proud, because, I could not be more proud of my Ivy Tech education, my foundation, my Ivy Tech foundation. And I said at the time, and I think this says a lot, I hope, for prospective students as well. It used to be when people would come in my office and they would see things on my wall. Behind me, I have some hardware. A pro bono award, all Indiana academic team at Ivy Tech, new employee of the year for the Division of Student Affairs here at Florida State. But you'll see behind me, there's a plaque on the top shelf that was the Dean's Award that I was awarded by the folks in the criminal justice program, by Mary and Karen and Bill. And I used to tell people, they'd see and you can't see it, it's off to the side, but my law degree is huge. It is huge. But people would come to my office and they'd see that, oh, I didn't know you had a JD, and you could talk. And at that time, I remember I didn't have a stand for that. And but I kept it in my desk drawer right next to me. And I would say, but this, and I would pull that out and I would say, but this is the most important of all. You can take all of these other things, but this is what matters most. And I would make people hear my story and, how I'm lucky to be where I am. So I think that says a lot too. And the only thing that might have surpassed that was being named a distinguished alumni. So, but anyway, back to the question. I'm sorry, I like to talk about these things any chance I get, but to the students, stick with it, define your success. I talked about that in my commencement address, and I think that's really true. Don't try to be like, I know that you're speaking to several alumni for this project, and don't try to be us, be you, write your own story and decide what's success for you and stick with it. And as I said then as well, if your goals change, if your passions change, go with it, because if you've got what you need, you've got the foundation from that education, you've got instructors that I know you can go back to seek advice from, you've got what you need to do whatever it is that you want to. You've got to put in the hard work, and you've just got to keep those connections. So that's what I would say. And I think the only other thing that I would say is, and wouldn't want to end it on this, I suppose, to sound sad, but another thing I talked about in that address was about, failure, and to just kind of remind students there's going to be bumps in the road, and it builds character, and that's where success comes from. And I had a lot of failures, a lot of failures before I finally got on that path. And I've had setbacks since, but stick with it. I can tell you, I promise, I hope that I'm a credible source to say, things will still work out. You just have to stay stubborn. As Associate Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor said, because I have to get it in there somewhere. If you just try and be stubborn about trying, you can do what you set your mind to. So stay stubborn, stay the course. Don't be afraid to change your plans. And I hope anyone who watches this, whether it's a parent or prospective student or current student, I hope to welcome all of you to the Ivy Tech alumni family someday. It's a pretty special group, and one that I'm definitely proud to be a member of, if you can't tell.
Yeah, well, we are certainly proud of you and your accomplishments. You represent not only Ivy Tech, but the community here, especially in another state. So we're really proud of that. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your very busy schedule. We really appreciate our alumni coming back and just telling us, just what they're up to. And my hope is that, prospective students, current students will see that, hey, I can do this too. So I really appreciate you. Thank you very much and have a great day.